Mr. Moore's math class!
Good afternoon, guys, and welcome to Mr. Moore's online classroom. Now, we have got plenty to get through today. We're going to be learning all about linear modeling. Now, essentially what linear modeling is it's just getting everything that we've learned throughout the unit and applying these skills to worded questions. So let's not wait any longer and let's get stuck straight into the lesson. Now, what I recommend that you do when answering any question related to linear modeling, or any other worded question for that matter, is that you attempt the problem and you use the following 7 steps to help you out. Let's check them out. Highlight the key information. Identify the things that are changing, or in other words, the variables, and write these down as dot points. Once you've got the variables written down in dot point form, assign some pronumerals to them. Now, if it's something to do with money, identify the fixed cost, as in the y-intercept, and the cost per unit, as in the gradient. Now it's time to write an equation that brings all of the information together. And now that we have the equation, we can actually use this to solve any problem by substituting in the appropriate values. And I always recommend sketching a graph, regardless if the question asks you to or not, in order to be able to help you with answering these questions.
Okay, so now it's time to attempt some worked examples in regards to linear modelling. But before we do that, let's just recap on some of the information that we've just gone over. This being the must-do steps when attempting worded questions. 1. Highlight the key information in the question. 2. Identify the variables and write down in dot points. 3. Assign pronumerals to these variables. 4. Identify the fixed cost, as in the y-intercept, and the cost per unit, as in the gradient. 5. Write an equation using this information to represent the problem. 6. Use this equation to solve any given question that you may be asked. And 7. Roughly sketching a graph may assist you in answering these questions. Remember, you can use your CAS calculator to do this. Okay, so the problem is this. A generator company charges a $200 delivery fee and a rental fee of $1,500 per day. A. Find an expression relating total cost to the number of days for which the generator is hired. B. Sketch a graph of the relationship. And C. What would be the charge for 4 weeks of rental. Right, the first step that you can see up here is, of course, go through and highlight all of the key information. So let's go through and do that. So a generator company charges a $200 delivery fee and a rental fee of $1,500 per day. Okay, so basically wherever you see a number will give you a hint on what you need to do to highlight. So a $200 delivery fee, meaning that's how much it's going to cost for you just to get it, and a rental fee of $1,500 per day, meaning how much it will cost for every day that you have it. Alright, and the next part of the question says, find an expression relating total cost to the number of days for which the generator is hired. So total cost is another thing that we're looking for, and it's relating to the number of days for which the generator is hired. So what this is hinting at essentially is our 2 variables, which brings us to our second step in what we must do, and that is identify the variables and write down in dot points. So let's have a look. The 2 variables are the total cost, because that will change of course, and the other variable is the number of days, because the total cost will change with the number of days. Alright, step 3 says assign pronumerals to these variables. Okay, so let's have a look at this. We've got total cost. Now what we generally do is we write a letter that might represent what that says. So cost being C, and the number of days, well, we can call that N for number. Alright, the next step says identify the fixed cost and the cost per unit. So let's go through and do that. Well, the fixed cost, if we have a look up here, it says it's $200 delivery fee for that. So that is the very initial amount. So this here is going to be the fixed cost. So the fixed cost equals 200, and the cost per unit, well, that's $1,500 per day. The word per basically means it's the gradient. So as soon as you see the word per, it means that is the M value. So this here is the cost per unit. So the cost per unit is equal to 1,500. Now the next step is to write an equation using these pieces of information to represent what's actually going on. So we know that the total cost will depend on the number of days, so we'll make the total cost the dependent variable and the number of days the independent variable. So the cost will be equal to $200 plus 1,500 times the number of days. So that bringing in once again the total cost here is equal to 200 being the initial, because it's going to cost us $200 before we even use it, plus $1,500 for every single day that we do, being in here. Alright, the next part of the question says sketch a graph of the relationship. So let's first of all write out the equation again. So you get C is equal to 200 plus 1500n. Okay, so let's first of all find the y-intercept, because that's always important. So the y-intercept will happen when n is equal to 0. Therefore we get C is equal to 200 plus 1500 times 0, which of course C is therefore equal to 200. So the y-intercept will be at the point 0, 200. Let's go through and plot that point there. So 0, 200 is right here. Alright, and let's just substitute in any other n value. So let's just say 2. So n equals 2. C is equal to 200 plus 1500 times 2. 1500 times 2 is 3000, plus 200 is 3200. So you get C is equal to 3200, and of course the point is 2, 3200. And let's go plot that. So 2 up to 3200. Put a dot there. Now we've got our 2 points. Of course we can create a straight line, so let's just do that. Going straight up through and draw the line continuing on. Write out the equation of the line so that we know C is equal to 200 plus 1500n, and all the points of interest, so that therefore would be 0, 200, and this would be 2, 3200. Finally, the last question says what would be the charge for 4 weeks rental. So once again, let's go through and highlight key information. Basically we want to know the charge, and we know that we're having 4 weeks rental. So what we're saying is we know that n is equal to 4 weeks, which is essentially 28 days, and C is what we're actually looking for. Alright, so let's substitute into the formula now. So we have the formula C is equal to 200 plus 1500n, where n is equal to 28, so we're going to do C is equal to 200 plus 1500 times 28, which is equal to 200 plus 42,000. Therefore C is equal to $42,200. Therefore the cost to hire the generator for 4 weeks is $42,200. So as you can see, we actually did step 6 in part C of the question, that is use the equation to solve any given question that you may be asked. Of course we'll come up with our equation here, and then we've used that then to substitute in and solve any kind of question that we've been asked there. And of course step 7 says roughly sketching a graph may assist you in answering these questions. Alright, well once again you have a look here, we've got step 7 basically that we attempt in part B, and we've sketched the graph, and this may have assisted us if we have drawn it a bit bigger, going up to 28 days, we could have actually just got that straight from the graph. Alright, so now it's time for you guys to press pause and have a go at the question below. Once again, remember to press play once you're done so you can check your answers against mine. Alright, so first thing to do is go through and highlight key information. So a singing telegram service charges a $60 appearance fee, so that's the initial amount, and $8 per minute song. Alright, the first question says sketch a graph of the relationship. Now it's hard to sketch a graph unless you actually go through and write out an equation first. So what I've done is I've done the first step, highlighted the key information already. Alright, the next step says identify the variables and write down in dot points. So the variables are of course going to be the amount that you're going to spend, so being the cost, and the number of minutes sung, because that's how much it's going to cost per minute. So done that there. The next one says assign pronumerals to these variables. Okay, so let's do that. What I'm going to call cost is C. So write that in brackets here, C, and what we'll call number of minutes is N. Alright, so that there has also been done. The next one says identify the fixed cost y-intercept and the cost per unit. Alright, so let's have a look here. The fixed cost, that is the very initial thing, that's going to be $60 just for going out, so that's fixed. And the cost per unit, well that's $8 per minute. Remember the word per actually gives us a big hint for this. So that's a gradient, so that's a cost per unit. So that there has been done. Now what we need to do is write an equation using this information to represent the problem. So I've got my cost, I've got my number of minutes sung as my two variables, and I know my y-intercept and my gradient. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to say we've got our cost here, that's always going to be the dependent variable, because that'll always depend on how much time or whatever you're going to have. So cost is the dependent variable, that's the one that's on its own, or in other words what we normally call the y value. And the number of minutes sung, well that's the independent variable, because that will determine the cost, and that's over here. Right, so the cost is going to be equal to 60, because that's our initial fee, plus 8 times the number of minutes sung, because for every minute it costs $8. Okay, so now that I've got my formula, I can just substitute in any two values in order to sketch the graph. What I'll always do is substitute in 0, because it's always good to have the y-intercept. So I've done that. N is equal to 0. 60 plus 8n is the formula once again. Remember, n is equal to 0, so I'm substituting that in here. So then you get 60 plus 8 times 0, of course, is 60. So the coordinates at this point are 0, 60. And as you can see, I've just drawn it over here. Alright, the next one, we've just substituted any other value for n. I've chosen to make it 3, so we've got n is equal to 3. So therefore, c is equal to 60 plus 8n. Remember, we'll write the formula once again. c is equal to 60 plus 8 times 3. Well, 8 3s are 24, so 60 plus 24 is 84. So the coordinates at this point would be 3 for n and 84 for the cost. So 384, go all the way up to there, and that goes around about there. So I've got my 2 points now, so all I need to do is sketch a graph between the 2 points. Remember to use a ruler. It's kind of hard with this device, but you can see what's going on there. Alright, and we just go through and label the points that we've used. So we've got 0, 60 and 384. Remember to draw the arrow because the cost will continue going up for every minute sung. Right, the next question says, how much will it cost for a 3-minute song? Well, what they're giving us is the value of n, that is how long we're going to sing for. So we know n is equal to 3, and of course we're looking for the cost, which is actually what the question's asking. So that's a question mark there. So cost is equal to the formula here, 60 plus 8n. Instead of writing n now, I've written 3, because I know how many minutes I've sung for. So the cost is equal to 60 plus 8 times 3, and 8 3s are 24 once again, plus 60 is 84, which we've already seen here, and that's why I've chosen actually to use the 3 here, because I read ahead. Okay, so all I've just written here is a little statement saying that it will cost $84 for the 3-minute song. Because the question has been given to us in a written format, we should always provide a written answer. The final question says this: Mr. Moore has $95. What song could he get sung for that much money? Check your iPod and leave a comment below. Alright, so what I've done is I know that my cost is maximum going to be $95. Alright, the number of minutes, well, that's what I'm actually looking for. So I've got my cost is equal to 60 plus 8n. C I know is actually 95, so instead of writing C, I've written 95 here, and I've left the formula as it is, that is equals 60 plus 8n. Next thing I've done is I've subtracted 60 from both sides because I want to get n on its own. 95 minus 60 is 35, and the 60s here will cancel each other out, leaving us at 8n. Now we're going to divide both sides by 8. These cancel out here with the 8s, and the 35 divided by 8 is 4.375 is equal to n. So I know that I can have a song that goes for 4.375 minutes. But never say 4.375 minutes. What we actually want to know is the number of seconds as well. So I want to have a look at the number of seconds. That means I'm going to multiply the 0.375, because this here is minutes, the 4 minutes. But this part here represents a second, so I'm going to multiply 0.375 times 60, because it's 60 seconds in a minute. That there got me 22.5 seconds. So I know that I can choose a song that goes for 4 minutes and 22 seconds. If I chose one that went for 4 minutes and 23 seconds, I wouldn't technically have enough money. Now what song is that, you ask? Well, on my iPod it happens to be LMFAO Party Rock Anthem.
Every day I'm shuffling.